If you think talking about mental illness is scary, imagine what happens when we don't talk about it. Join the conversation. Visit letstalkstigma.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Smith, Executive Director of Prevention Focus and Chair of the Anti-Stigma Coalition. On behalf of all of us with that organization, I would like to welcome you to the latest in our series of Facebook Live events. This time, our program is called Teachers and Staff Build a Mental Wellness Plan for the New School Year. Once August rolls around, thoughts of back to school enter into the public consciousness. It is a time of excitement and anticipation, but also can bring stress and worry to parents and students and the teachers and staff who await. Schools are ground zero for children and families navigating through the stressful and difficult times we are all living in these days. Faculty and school staff are crucial in the efforts to help kids deal with these challenges and to strive to learn. But teachers, administrators, and all staff members in schools are people too, and feel much of the same stress and anxieties that all of us deal with. What are teachers going through in schools? What can they do to help themselves this fall and throughout the year? What can schools do to support them? Is there stigma around mental health issues in the education community? We'll address these questions and more. Before I introduce our panel, a couple of quick things. Our program is up for 1 hour. During this time, if you have a question or comment, please type it into the chat box and we will respond accordingly. Your questions often lead to some great dialogue, so please don't be shy. Now on to our panelists. Jachlewski. Dr. Jachlewski is the Superintendent of Schools for the North Tonawanda City School District. Welcome to our panel, Jeff.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Melissa Walter. Melissa is the Director of Child and Adolescent Services for Horizon Health Services. Thanks for joining us, Melissa.
It's good to be here.
And Dr. Wendy Weinstein. She's the BryLin Chief of Psychiatry. Great to have you with us, Wendy.
My pleasure.
So let's talk a little bit about each of you. We were invited to join this discussion, and I would just like real quick, what is it that appealed to you when we brought up this topic? Jeff, can we start with you?
Sure, absolutely. I just finished my first year as superintendent in North Tonawanda, but prior to that, I started as a teacher for 7 years, and then also as a principal for about 18 years. So a lot of time in school buildings, and this is a topic really close to me, as you know, everyone feels it. All of our teachers, our teacher aides, our bus drivers, everyone feels it this time of the year. So it's really important to be able to talk about these things with other people and let people know how we can work together to get through these things.
I appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you and welcome. Melissa, I'd like to put the same question to you.
Sure. I've been working with children and adolescents for a little over 20 years, and I am overseeing child and adolescent programming at Horizon as well as our school-based team. And so this is a busy time for us, prepping for the school year as well, with our counselors being on site at schools to provide those mental health services on site. So we definitely see the rising rates of mental health issues playing a role in child and adolescent mental health and how that impacts them in their school day.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And Wendy, what appealed to you about this whole question, this whole topic area? Why'd you say yes to me when we asked you?
Yeah, well, I'm the adult chief at BryLin Hospital, but I also have my own private practice where I see many people, including teachers, and especially in the summer. And the commonality and the themes that they bring up all seem to be very similar. And it appealed to me that there was a theme going on here that really needs to be addressed.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We're looking forward to this discussion very, very much. I think it's very timely and an important topic. So let's dive right in. It's August now, and we've all been seeing back to school ads on TV for the last month. What's going through the minds of school faculty, administrators, and staff right now, do you think? Jeff, let's start with you.
Well, much to the dismay of my staff, I sent an email we got last week with the agenda of our opening day for next week on Wednesday. So, it's sort of, that's what signifies the end of the summer break for much of our staff. So it starts bringing up those thoughts of, what is my class going to be like? How is my schedule going to change? Those things, the types of kids that are going to be in my classroom, the parents that I'm going to be working with, all of those things that come up. So it does, the tension starts to rise a little bit. There's excitement too. There's a lot of excitement of the staff coming back. We're excited to have them back. For those of us that work all summer long, it's nice to have the staff come back. So, but it's definitely a challenging time for a lot of people as their schedules change, going from summer routines to school.
I can imagine. Wendy, you said you have some clients that you've seen over the years. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing that comes up is anxiety. Because they have change is difficult for many people. And so they've been doing one thing for the last few months, and now in 24 hours, it's going to suddenly change. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to, they like to say, well, it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. And that's the number one thing I hear. Well, I've done it before. It's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. It's anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Whenever we have change and we have fear of the unknown, that can cause a lot of that, right?
Absolutely.
No matter what the situation. Melissa, what do you think?
Yes, it's a big adjustment. Like Wendy said, lots of anxiety, the stress that comes with getting to know new people, new classes, new parents, all of that new interaction, sending communications out, a lot of coordination takes place. I know even on our end, we're coordinating even now with school counselors and school staff, getting ready for the school year. So there's just a lot of extra stress.
So the stuff has already really started, really.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, it has maybe been going on for a while. Jeff, I'd like to peel back the curtain for people in the audience right now a little bit. And as we are getting into this time now where it's just about to start for the kids, what are the first days like in the school before the students arrive? What's that atmosphere? What activities are taking place?
So we have 3 superintendent conference days prior to kids returning to school here in North Tonawanda. And the first day we start with my opening message. And last year we talked about developing a sense of belonging, not just for our kids, but really for everyone, all of our staff members, our teachers, our food service workers, aides, custodians, bus drivers, developing that sense of belonging and really putting out an uplifting message at the beginning. But there's other things that need to be done. There's classrooms that need to be set up. There's mandatory trainings that need to happen, and things that aren't as exciting or as uplifting, but they're things that need to be done. So it's trying to find a nice balance of keeping the time exciting, keeping it positive, but also getting the work done that needs to get done as well.
So 3 days worth of content, and some of it,
yeah,
some of it is nuts and bolts, kind of housekeeping kind of things, I imagine. But then some of it is also meant to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to start off the year on a positive note and really talk about what we're going to be doing throughout the year to support our kids and support each other. That's where we want to start. But the nuts and bolts and the housekeeping does take up a significant chunk of time.
Right. So that's all underway as far as that goes. Melissa, do you do a lot of work right now at this time with schools? I mean, you talked a little bit about working with the guidance departments, I thought.
Yeah, so our communication with our school contacts is really just beginning this week as people start to come back into the schools, to set up counselor schedules that are going to be on site and just communicate about, things that are going to happen through the year in terms of like referrals for children and adolescents and what that might look like.
And Wendy, as far as the people you've talked to in the past, what's particularly stressful or difficult about these couple of days that are coming up?
Well, if you have anxiety, sometimes it's hard to concentrate, and now you're getting thrown all of this new content on you. And so a lot of people just get really overwhelmed with, the fact that you went from 0 to 180 in 3 days. And so, anxiety can be isolating. And so maybe you're just feeling that by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not really communicating it to other people where maybe everyone is feeling the same way.
I often wonder when teachers have some of these feelings that are very legitimate for the end of the summer, I wonder if there's a reluctance to share with a public that might not have a lot of sympathy, that didn't have that summertime.
Absolutely. The clients that I see, a lot of them say, oh, if I talk to this about my significant other, to family, they'll say, oh, you should just be so lucky you had the time off. No one gets this time off. So they shouldn't feel this way because they're lucky.
Yeah. I've never encountered so much venom in the public. Full disclosure, I was a member of a board of ed years ago, and the public sentiment because of that time off is often not very positive in a community.
Yeah.
Well, I find that the focus is so much on the children's mental health and their adjustment getting back. And we do see a lot of anxiety in the children coming back to school. So the focus becomes the children, and the teachers are expected to kind of roll with that and take care of their needs instead of their own needs, right?
Yeah. We just got our first question. When I get these, I like to address them. We got our first question that's just come through on the chat. And the question is it going back to work anxiety, or the fact that the state of the world is more combative and the teachers' hands are tied a bit? Is it growing yearly? Is this getting worse? I don't know. Who'd like to talk about this?
I can start. I mean, I started in 1999 as a teacher, and there was a lot of anxiety then, and I feel a lot of anxiety now going as a new school year starts. So I'm not sure if it's changes in the world. I think that it's just changes in schedules and changing in things that are happening and different expectations. So to me, it's always been there. There's always been a time of change has always been an anxious time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would agree with that because, anxiety is anxiety. And I don't know if people's hands are tied or if it's the flavor of the year. I know that teachers have had to be very, very clever in terms of figuring out new teaching styles, especially when you talk about COVID and things of that nature. So I think sometimes you have to look at your track record and realize what you've been through and what you've done.
Yeah, and I would also say, I mean, our hands could be tied in certain areas, but I think the freedom to talk about mental health has definitely expanded over the years, where I would say, 25 years ago, there was a lot less discussion about students, especially students' mental health, whereas today it's an everyday occurrence that we're talking about student mental health. So certainly our hands are tied in maybe other areas, but I don't think when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, I think the knowledge of anxiety and what it is and what to look for might be out there in a way that it wasn't, 20 years ago, for sure.
I agree.
I think we have made progress in this area, but Jeff, you got into another great topic area here with the way things earlier in your career. Did you encounter parents who didn't want you to go there, public sentiment to say this is something that schools should be talking about, or is there, a reluctance to be honest about such things and bring them up as opposed to now?
Yeah, I would absolutely say, 25 years ago, it was a lot less common to have these conversations, and especially after COVID. During COVID and after COVID, I think was the time where it was just like everyone was willing to have the conversation. I think people saw it more when kids were at home for a year. I think, maybe teachers saw it for a long time, but when parents had to see it every day at home, I think it changed the narrative a little bit.
I think that might be one of the silver linings with this whole business, is I think that it kind of forced us to reevaluate some of this stuff. And by necessity, we had to become better at frank dialogue about these things. Well, see, you brought up COVID, and it's like, as far as people will say, oh, that was ancient history. It was a long time ago. Are we still feeling aftershocks of COVID? Melissa, what do you think? You smiled.
I think we are. I think we don't fully understand what the impact of COVID was. For children who struggle with anxiety, being home might have actually been beneficial, or teachers, right? Like they may not have experienced as much anxiety when they could stay in their homes. And so having that comfort during that time that they were able to stay in their homes, then having to go back out into the world again, I think caused an uptick of anxiety, right? And we're seeing some rising rates, but I think there are other factors playing a role as well. Social media, access to cannabis in ways that wasn't available before. I think there's other factors playing a role.
What do you think, Wendy?
I think that, when COVID is in our rearview mirror, but it's not that rear view. It's still, there's still remnants of it, and there's still that worry for some people, because it wasn't too long ago. And I think too that, there's something about going to a building every day. There's something about being with camaraderie with your fellow students, with your fellow teachers, that can really be helpful. And I think that was in some ways very isolating for many people, and drove up the rates of anxiety and depression as a result.
I would agree with what Melissa said too, with there being other factors, especially things like, drug use and social media. But what is good is I think there's a willingness to have the conversation to try to figure out and solve the issues that are coming up versus pushing it under the rug.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, as a person who's been in addiction prevention for a very long time, we come to realize that law is often a shaper of attitude and belief, and attitude and belief end up impacting behaviors. And now we have legalized cannabis for recreational purposes. We have legalized sports betting. We have some things that have changed the landscape, at least, and young people see this and know this. So I think that there's some of the challenges have increased in terms of convincing young people that some things are harmful. So anyway, doing that. Back more to what's really going on right now. I guess I'd ask for advice from each of you regarding the practical things that teachers could maybe do on their own to maintain their mental wellness in these early weeks of school. What are some things that each of you would recommend to teachers as they're gearing up to get started?
I'll start. I think setting boundaries. For example, I've mentioned this before, not bringing your work home with you for the first, try not to bring your work home with you. Leave your laptop at the office, at school. The other thing is to set some healthy boundaries as well. You want to do self-care. You want to, if you exercise, continue to go to the exercise. Maybe you have to change the time of your class, but be flexible with yourself and don't overcomplicate it.
Yes, I would also recommend putting some routines in place early that really support mental health early on in the school year, finding where in your schedule there will be room for a mindfulness break, or to reach out to a support, whether it be a coworker or whoever that might be. But just having things in place early on that can carry through the school year to really support their needs, and also taking care of their basic needs. So drink water, get enough rest, similar to what Dr. Weinstein said.
There's something about routine, right? I mean, when it comes to mental wellness, I mean, there could be a comfort in routine and getting back to the normal, whatever that normal is. And I would add to that, getting outside, breathing fresh air, taking a walk, magic to movement, right? All these things can be helpful. What would you say, Jeff?
Yeah, I would agree with all the things that were said, and continuing some of the routine that you were doing over the summer, some of the things you enjoyed, continuing that into the school year, like Wendy said, like exercise and things like that. Also, many of our staff members, many of us that are in education, we try to be perfectionists in the things that we do, and having the flexibility and realization that it's never going to be perfect. We're never going to have the perfect classroom with the perfect kids and the perfect parents, and everything we do is right. So just that understanding that, really our job is to try to be a little bit better every day, but it's never going to be perfect. Sometimes it makes it a little bit more manageable for us.
I think that if you set yourself up to be perfectionistic, you set yourself up for failure. And then you get harder on yourself because you're like, oh, it wasn't perfect. But you set yourself up that way by putting yourself on that high level.
Right.
Is there something that's in a personality profile of your average educator that kind of makes things that specifically hard for them in this area?
I think most educators are very regimented and want to see things go their way all the time. So the flexibility is a big piece that, we would love to have everything go well all the time, but the reality is it's not going to happen that way. And having that ability to support the different needs that are in your classroom, that's really important. And really, you can't support those needs unless you're taking care of your own needs.
I would agree.
Some of the teachers I've worked with seem to have very, very high expectations of themselves and pressure, right, to be perfect, right? And, when you have a checklist and you're not getting all of the things completed on the checklist, it can feel really overwhelming, and there can be a lot of negative self-talk and feelings of failure going on. So, I really encourage people to give themselves grace and be kind to themselves and treat themselves the way they would treat a friend in that situation. Because sometimes the pressure we put on ourselves is different than the pressure we might put on someone else.
If I can just add to that, one of the things that I noticed too is that if a teacher is putting that much pressure on themselves and a lot of negative self-talk, the students are going to pick that up. And then the students may react or will react based upon what they're picking up, whether it be, unconsciously. And they may start to feel that way too. So it's like a downward effect. So it's really important that teachers reach out and really ask for the help, because they're the front lines and the students are going to pick that right up.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jeff.
I would absolutely agree with Wendy that they pick up that attitude very quickly, and it's important to have a positive attitude. And I think one of the challenges that our schools face is our schools really are one-stop shops for healthcare, food, education, working with everything, versus maybe a long time ago it was only really about the academics. And really, schools are expected to provide everything for kids and families now. And when you think about it, our teachers and administrators, they're not equipped to deal with a lot of things that come up. So it becomes an extra challenge, but they want to be able to help with all of those situations.
The job description has certainly grown over the years, and the needs seem to be growing all the time. And there seems to always be some sort of attitude of do more with less with all of us who are in the helping professions. And I think that brings with it a special kind of pressure, for them as well. Another question just came in. Do teachers talk about mental health more now with their peers than in the past? Or are they worried that it will affect their job and the way they are seen by their colleagues? We think about that one. I know we talked earlier about it being more open and honest in terms of how it relates to the students, and in general, a discussion about mental wellness and mental health. But if a teacher were to be experiencing something, how easy is it versus years ago for them to talk to their peers or to other supports?
I think number one, I think it's a great question, and I do believe that there's less of a stigma now to have those conversations with their peers, and certainly some of our staff members have very close relationships with other staff members, and some they're less likely to talk about it with some of those staff members that they're not as close with. But I know we just brought in 26 new teachers this summer, and part of our new teacher orientation was we brought in a person from the EAP program, so the Employee Assistance Program, to talk to all those new teachers, to tell them with what we had available as a district and through that program of how they can help new staff members. And it's something that we'll certainly be re-explaining to all of our staff members as well, that there are opportunities to talk and have those conversations with other people. So I think there are opportunities with the colleagues, but also other programs through the school as well.
Jeff, I'm glad you brought up EAP. Melissa, forgive me for just 1 second. I think that's one message that I think needs to be really driven home to any employer that's out there that has that. As an employer who has EAP, I get reports just that it was used. There's no names, there's no topic areas, there's nothing like that for me to discern who it is. It is completely confidential and 100% free. So congratulations to your district for investing in their people in that way. But also, let's get the message out there that this is a safe and right thing to do. Right. Sorry, Melissa, please go.
I was going to say another thing I've noticed districts doing, are just from a continuing education standpoint, is they're bringing in people to provide a lot of presentations on mental health topics, including managing stress and anxiety. And I feel like districts are really opening up the conversation by doing that and getting the information out there so that teachers can put a name to what they're experiencing and may have more of an ability to talk about it. So I think the more that school systems can do that, the better off teachers will be as well.
Melissa, is that something that you do on the regular?
Yes. I go out into schools and provide presentations. Sometimes the presentations are directed towards the health and wellness of teachers. Sometimes it's, the health and wellness of the students. But yeah, Horizon does have a group of people who provide presentations like that.
And just ballpark, how many districts are taking advantage of those services that you provide?
I will say a lot of districts in the area are, and again, I just have my own viewpoint from Horizon. I don't know who else is providing presentations in town, but we've been working with 29 or 30 different schools in I don't know how many districts that would be, but we're working in 30 schools right now.
Fantastic. And that's some in-service things for the faculty and staff.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful to hear. That's really great. Okay, I know that if we're going to do some cheap plugs, I know that the Prevention Focus, we also offer a workshop for teachers as well that we'd like to provide. And any school that's interested in that, please contact us. And I'm sure they can contact you directly, right, Melissa, if any district is interested in that. Okay, we have another question that has come through. When addressing mental health concerns for students, are parents more receptive to hearing about it, or is it not taken seriously? So when a mental health concern happens, how are parents as far as hearing that this is going on? I don't know who'd like to take this one first.
I think it's very individualized based upon the parents. I think there are some parents that still have a stigma about the illness. There are some parents that don't. And I think that it's really individualized case by case. I don't think you can make a generalized statement and state that parents are more receptive or they're not. But I do know that parents they're on the front line too with the teachers, and we need to work on having them being more open to a disease that isn't seen.
Very good point. If anyone's just joining us, I'm Matt Smith from the Anti-Stigma Coalition, and I'm joined by Dr. Jeffrey Jachlewski, Superintendent of Schools for the North Tonawanda City School District, Melissa Walter, Director of Child and Adolescent Services for Horizon Health Services, and Dr. Wendy Weinstein, BryLin Unit Chief of Psychiatry. We're discussing mental wellness in schools with a special emphasis on meeting the needs of the administration, faculty, and staff members. Everyone joining us, please do take a minute and check out our website, letstalkstigma.org. Maybe join the over 4,000 others in taking the pledge to end stigma. Also, if you are connected with a business, organization, or faith community, you can become an organizational member of the Anti-Stigma Coalition. You can find information for this on the website under our members tab. All right, now back to the conversation. If you're, educators in schools, and if teachers might feel like they're struggling, what signs should teachers look for in themselves that might indicate that they could need some support? Wendy?
A lot of times a teacher may feel like disorganized or have difficulty focusing. They may have difficulty with sleep. Sleep is huge. Maybe they were up all night or up till 4 a.m. worrying, and then they can't concentrate and feel exhausted the next morning. Maybe their appetite has changed. That's a big sign.
Okay. Anything to add, Melissa?
One thing I notice when people are feeling very stressed or overwhelmed is also irritability and anger, maybe lashing out at the people around them. So in terms of their supports, when they start to see things like that, recognizing that as a sign that their loved one is stressed or overwhelmed is really important.
Okay. Jeff, anything else?
I would definitely agree with that, taking that frustration out on students in the classroom or their colleagues, and then bringing that home as well. It seems to be the first thing that we see.
So if that is happening and a teacher recognizes that themselves or in a colleague, what would we recommend as the next steps to take?
I know when we've dealt with situations like that, it's having the conversations with them, letting them know that we're here for support, asking them what they need, but also providing that EAP assistance, making sure that we have the card available to give to them, to the number to call, and letting them know that we're here to support them. And we know there's a lot of challenges out there, and it's not easy. Even though some people make it look easy, it's definitely not easy. So we're here for them, and we want to work with them, just like we want to do with all of our students.
I think as well, it's easy if someone is lashing out and irritable, which was so eloquently stated, that it's easy to deny that there's an issue. So it has to be approached in a very kind of delicate way, like, hey, what's going on? How are you feeling? Because a lot of times people don't want to admit that something's wrong. If they're very confused about it, they may feel like they're just having a bad day.
Or it might be the other person's fault.
Right.
Right. And a lot of this, we are operating at unprecedented levels of stress just as a culture right now. There's just so much going on, and was going on before COVID, and then COVID made it worse. But there's just a lot of reasons why a person could be justifiably irritable or, feeling these feelings or having trouble sleeping or all these issues. So it's at what point do you feel like it's really important that we reach out? And that's, of course, a very individual thing. I guess for the purpose of this conversation is when it's the right time, it should be done, and it's the right thing to do. And how can we remove some of these impediments? I guess it gets back to the fundamental question. Again, this is from the Anti-Stigma Coalition, right? So we have to get back into stigma for a lot of this conversation. Is there a stigma around mental illness in the education community? And what does it look like, and how does it play out?
I think there's a stigma. I don't think you can just say to this population. I think this is a microcosm of a stigma. Bigger. I think it's getting better, but I think too, when someone's anxious or depressed, they don't tend to feel very good about themselves. So they may add to the stigma by thinking that what's wrong with them, this isn't a big deal, just because that's part of the nature of being anxious and depressed. So the stigma is real, not only from without, but also from within.
And people still may not be able to recognize the things arising in themselves, like we talked about earlier. So they might not know when to reach out for help. So I think it's really about developing a system of community care as well, where teachers and staff are looking out for each other and helping to take care of each other in a way maybe that we haven't always before. And just having the knowledge out in the community and the education, I think, is a huge part of that process, and being able to help each other when we see those signs and symptoms.
Yeah, I think there's less of a stigma now, but I think the challenge is it's hard to fix. A lot of issues that arise with kids or with staff members, if they're physical ailments, we can figure out how to fix those things in a general way, and it's easy to understand. It's hard to fix the mental health things going on because we don't know always what the trigger is. We don't even, there's just a lot of factors that are there. So things are easier to move on from when you know how to fix them easily.
No doubt. I think that, again, what are the rules? What's acceptable? What's okay? What is it safe to say and do? Jeff, I'd like to put on your old principal hat on a little bit, and just for a second, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but if you had someone that was under you that was having difficulties, what advice would you give to a principal who's encountering that? What are the gotta do's to make sure we can get going?
I think really for every job that I've ever had, it's developing relationships with the people that you work with, and being able to have candid conversations and open conversations, and not pushing things off. So really, no matter what role you're in, being willing to have those conversations and work with somebody, and figure out what supports are available and what you can do for the person. And sometimes it's just listening. That's sometimes what people need, but understanding what supports are there. I know last year we offered at least 10 different professional development opportunities with mindfulness and self-care and things like that, and being aware of what's available for people.
Well, I'd love to hear more about that. You said you offered mindfulness, and how much of that did you offer, and how was it offered?
I believe we had 10 different professional development opportunities that were available for any of our staff members to attend after school, and they were all really well attended. And when we looked at the evaluations that the staff members gave for attending those sessions, they all said that they were just very appreciative of those opportunities, and really took a lot away from the sessions.
That's great to hear. That's really good to hear. I think it does a couple of things. One, it actually does the job in terms of giving information to people who need it. But what a great statement on behalf of the district to the faculty that, we care enough about you that we're going to offer these things, and we're going to we acknowledge that you're in a lot of stress, and we acknowledge that this is a difficult environment for you. I think that's important. I don't know. Wendy, what do you think about that?
I was just thinking that's really wonderful, because when you're anxious and irritable and depressed, you can be very judgmental. So to have someone approach you in a very non-judgmental way is huge, because that really can get the conversation starting, rather than say, what's wrong with you, as opposed to, how can I help? Or let's talk about mindfulness, or just kind of that way, because you don't want to judge, because we're already judging ourselves in that state.
Melissa, I know I think you've done a lot of work with trauma-informed care, right? And
yes.
So how would you say this applies then to the messaging that we should be giving to schools?
Yes, I mean, mindfulness is a huge part of that, for sure. But coming from that lens of compassion and understanding that everyone is coming into the workplace, and all the students are coming in with all different experiences. And so we don't know what they're carrying with them. And so, treating people with compassion and looking through that lens, I think, is really important. And, in terms of teachers and mindfulness, they're really giving themselves to be present in what they're doing, and doing one thing at a time, and leaving kind of those other things, out of the work that they're doing is really tough. And so having that skill set becomes really, really important.
I think that's true. And also applying that kindness and benefit of the doubt and understanding, not only to the students, but to everybody you work with, whatever role they have in the building, whatever role there is. I think that can go a long way and certainly be very helpful. I have another question that has come through on the chat. The understanding of mental health and wellness has changed generationally. Are teachers who have been in the industry for 20, 30, or 40 years open to being more open about discussing mental health challenges? Is there a difference based upon how long you've been around, how old you are? I don't know, just with people in general. Go ahead.
I think things change, as your life changes too. As our teachers get a little more experienced and start having families of their own, they seem to, life changes, and therefore their understanding changes, and through their life changes, I think they get it. They understand that there's a lot of differences out there and a lot of challenges out there, and that's good for them. And I know in our schools, for instance, we have every building has at least one social worker, at least one counselor. That wasn't the case 10 years ago, and all of that professional support is always there to work with our teachers to understand more about our kids, and and develop a better understanding of mental health as well. So we appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I feel
What-
like
what- Go ahead.
in the continuing education, I think people are getting more updated knowledge, and so the understanding changes, right, as the work changes.
Right.
So I think just staying up to date on the knowledge becomes really, really important, but I feel like school systems are doing that.
Okay. But are there fundamental different beliefs based upon, age of a person? I know we're having very general terms here. I know that. Wendy, what do you
Well,
think?
I can just say from my private practice that I see younger teachers that seem very involved and right away are jumping in. And then I see older teachers where you have that sense of burnout, where they are just tired and frustrated and overwhelmed and, counting down the days. And then, like Jeff said, also, you also have older teachers that have more of a knowledge of what's been going on and how things are and are willing to open themselves up to help and deal with these issues. So I think it kind of really waxes and wanes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'm a personal experience for me was, maybe 8-9 years ago when my assistant principal wanted to bring community circles into our building. And I just looked at him and said, that sounds stupid. It's a big circle where people are just going to talk. Like, I don't get it. And then I went through the training and sat in these circles, and staff members are crying and they're developing these connections that are absolutely unbelievable. And, it changes your mindset of what can be done through these things. So, and at that time I had years of experience. So, having those opportunities, I think, absolutely changes the mindset of people and the willingness to talk about these things and have conversations.
Jeff, thank you for sharing that story. I love stories. Stories are so great to, help people to understand different things. And that was a specific strategy you're talking about. And are there others? Are there other things that you can recall, or other things, Melissa, that you provide, or Wendy, that you've encountered that really would be helpful for a school to employ, a strategy to really help the faculty and the staff?
I think that the staff are bringing more and more into the schools. I've noticed that the development of family support centers and additional supports in that way available to the community. I think bringing in supports like EAP and being able to provide those referrals for services when they're needed is really helpful. Right, the support is there. It's just about accessing it and being linked to it when you're someone who needs it. I can say it's refreshing to see the younger generation be able to talk so openly about mental health, and maybe the older generations who grew up when there was more stigma might have more difficulty reaching out for those things. And so having it be offered and open in a very confidential way can be really helpful, and having the supports of other people around you, I think, is important.
I hear a lot from older teachers like, oh, I wish I had this 20 years ago, but I'm glad I have it now. And I think that group support is really where it's at. Mm-hmm. And I think we don't want to wait for a crisis. I think we want to have it there and people know about it, like the mindfulness, and right away. And, have this ongoing through the year that, there's going to be the mindfulness meeting tonight. And kind of have that as a regularly scheduled thing rather than just waiting for someone to feel like there's a crisis. It's kind of like, preventative medicine, so to speak.
Yeah, certainly is a proactive approach. I think maybe there's a magic to making it universally acceptable and everyone can participate as they want to. Maybe there's a magic to that, and
Exactly.
opening a door opening and making it okay. Another question came in through the chat here is, are young teachers being taught about mental wellness in their first job as a student teacher or in college? Is there an effort to make young teachers as they enter the field more savvy in this area? Do we know, either of us know that information?
Can't speak directly for the colleges, but it definitely seems like they're coming in with a heightened sense of awareness of student mental health. So I think they must be doing a good job at the college level, because they're coming in with a good idea of what's going on, and then they're bringing ideas to us to, as new teachers. They're talking to more veteran teachers and talking to principals about the things that they've done in college and student teaching. So I would definitely say there's more going on right now in college.
That'd be great to have them come out, with more tools in their toolbox than maybe had been in the past to help in this area. I agree. We talked a little bit earlier, just touched on it a little bit earlier, about attitudes about mental health in the home and attitudes about parents. What does it look like with schools now in terms of the partnership between the school and the families and the parents? And what advice do you give to parents who maybe think that might be something going on as far as school support and who they should be reaching out to? Anyone have an idea? We'll tackle that.
I can speak from the child and parent perspective, right?
Please do. Please.
So I think that if a parent feels like there's something going on with their child, the school counselor is a really great resource to reach out to. And that counselor is often a bridge, right, to other things that family might need, other resources and supports. And like I said, the family support centers that are being developed at the schools are really helpful in that regard as well. I think there are a lot of resources available, and it's just about getting linked to the right things.
What do you think? Go ahead. Yeah,
I think just reaching out is really important, whether it be the parent reach out to a teacher, to the social worker, maybe to a teacher, to another parent. Reaching out is huge, because reaching out starts to end the stigma.
Yeah, and and it goes both ways, because I know our family resource center, our social worker that's there, is consistently reaching out to families, making home visits and having those conversations and talking about the resources that the district can provide or the opportunities that are available within the community. And she's talking about food insecurities, health insecurities, transportation, mental health. So doing a lot of that work is coming from our family resource center.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I'm always astounded by sometimes the lack of knowledge of what's available and the perception from many people in the public that there isn't anything. I live way the heck out here. There's no services. There's nothing. And so what are we doing to provide that outreach? What's being done to better inform the families? What are the vehicles we're using, I guess, to let them know the stuff that's there?
I mean, for our district, it really is our social workers at every building that are really providing that information to our families. We put it in our newsletters, we put it in our videos. We try to have do the best we can with communication. That's something that we can always be better at, because not everyone's getting what we're sending out. Not everyone's getting those opportunities that are there. So figuring out how to make those connections a little bit better. And like I said, one of the things that we've been doing is more home visits recently.
Okay. Really great. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. One thing I've always wondered about is faculty and staff. And again, this applies to anybody that works in the school. What advice would you give to the loved ones and friends of people who maybe are struggling?
I think that one of the things that you want to do is, like I had mentioned before, you see them the most, so they're going to probably lash out at you because they know that you're not going anywhere. So the first thing that you really want to do is not be judgmental and just be supportive, as difficult as it may be with someone who's dealing with irritability and depression and burnout. You don't want to be judgmental, and you may just say, I don't know how I can help, but if I can, let me know. I'm here. It may be as simple as that.
Agreed. And not taking it personally or responding with defensiveness and anger, right? But just being able to take that step back and offer support can make a big difference as well.
I would agree. Not being judgmental and being there for them.
And not taking it personally, because when someone lashes out, it's easy to just say, what did I do? I'm mad at them now because they're being mean to me, but it's not about you. It's about the other person.
One thing that I've noticed in my time, just in general, is sometimes when a person wants to talk, they don't necessarily want you to solve the problem. They aren't expecting you to just give them the answer and tell them what to do. And sometimes if you try, you can get in trouble. I would recommend that. Be careful. Sometimes it's just the listening part, which really can be helpful, I think. Another question has just come through on the chat. Are students privy to mental health education so teachers and students can all be on the same page?
So we provide health classes to our students in middle school and high school, and also partly at our intermediate school. So some of the mental health curriculum's happening there, but really it's all of our homerooms are having opportunities to do community circles and have conversations like that. So it's not perfectly uniform to keep everyone on the same page, but it's definitely what we're striving to do, to give everyone as much mental health education as possible. We definitely have room to grow there.
Okay.
I've noticed schools are working mindfulness into the classroom as well. And I've seen that more and more with my own children coming home, telling me about things they've learned, that sounds very similar to what I do as a profession, right? And that's refreshing to see that they're learning it there as well.
That's interesting to see that permeating the landscape like that at that level.
Mm-hmm.
As again, building everyone's toolbox, but now from childhood, building that toolbox universally. How cool is that? What about you, Wendy? What do you think?
I think that I see a lot of people, and I'll see parents that come in and say, my child expressed to me that they felt sad, and that someone at school spoke with them about what that meant. And so I see that a lot as happening.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay. We've only got a couple of minutes yet to go. I would like to ask each of you to, if there's any thoughts that you might want to share, or if there's something that we didn't get to that you were hoping I'd ask. Is there something else you'd like to share as far as your final points that you'd like to make before we break up today? Now, Wendy, what do you have? Do you have anything for us?
I think that one of the important things is to summarize is that when you're depressed or anxious or burnt out, it's easy to just feel so negative about yourself. And so you really have to challenge that with mindfulness, with therapy, with maybe even medicine, to really just realize that this is not normal. The other thing is too, I just had a patient that came in to see me, and she said, they're just little things that are bothering me. And I'm like, that's devaluing how you feel. It's not little things. These are big things, but people have it worse. Well, it doesn't take away from what you're dealing with. They're not little things. Don't wait until it becomes a big thing, because it's big now.
That's very good advice. Appreciate that a lot.
Thank you.
Melissa, what about you?
I would say, it's important for teachers and school staff to recognize it's a difficult time to be working with children and teens because of all the things that they're facing and they're bringing. They're providing care to a very vulnerable population, and they're very vulnerable to secondary trauma, stress, compassion, fatigue, and all of those things. And recognizing that that's normal, and it's normal that they're experiencing those things, and just feeling, like it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you if you're experiencing stress and overwhelm and burnout, right? So being able to reach out for help is probably the most important thing.
I think a lot of these things are, not even maybe in the category of mental illness, but just natural reaction to the difficult things that we're all dealing with, just what the human brain would do under the circumstances that we're in. And I think that, we have to remember this is a stressful job. This is a difficult job. It's about other people, right? And being there for other people. But all these wonderful people we're talking about are humans too. And they're encountering all the other human stuff that people in other jobs are doing, and then expected to turn around and be there and be on for their students or their families, or to answer what's required of them by their principal or the superintendent. So I think there's a message there, I think, that's important that we need to all remember. And again, remembering that kindness element of it, and benefit of the doubt element of it. Jeff, what do you think about all this?
I think it's great that, number one, that we have the opportunity to talk about this. But to go along with what Melissa said, I mean, all through education, when we're working with kids, when they're in math class or science or ELA, we tell them to ask for help if they need it. We constantly remind them that we're here. Your fellow classmates are here to help. The teacher is here to help. And we encourage them to ask for help in an academic setting. But it takes courage to ask for help, for mental health needs or whatever else it might be. So just stressing the importance of, it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It's really a sign of strength and courage. And that can be for academic needs, mental health needs, whatever it might be, that really there's a lot of support here and we're all willing to help, but sometimes we miss it because we don't see all the signs. So it's really all about just encouraging people to ask for that support when they need it.
And I think on behalf of administrators and leadership in schools, making that environment where that's the normal thing, that's the expected thing, that's definitely the okay thing, that's the safe thing. And congratulations, Jeff, on all the things that you're doing to try to make that be the environment where that's what it is, where if a teacher or anybody that's working in the district has an issue, it's okay for them to do the next step, right? And making sure that could happen. So thank you for sharing all those strategies and all those things. Thank you all, panelists. You guys were wonderful today. Really appreciate it. As a reminder to our audience, we need you to take the pledge to end stigma by going to our website, letstalkstigma.org. If your organization would like to join us in our cause, there's information on the website as well. Just click on the members tab to find out how. Together, we can reduce stigma and create an environment of support where help seeking and help giving are the norm. So once again, I'd like to thank our panelists, Jachlewski, Melissa Walter, and Wendy Weinstein. I'd also like to thank everyone behind the scenes. Mike Telesco from Telesco Creative Group for his vision and technical support, and Karen Karaszewski from KKPR Buffalo for her valuable support as well. We hope you'll join us for our next Facebook Live, which will be coming your way in September. And if you join us late or want to tell anyone about this episode, all of our Facebook Live programs are available at our website, letstalkstigma.org. So on behalf of the Anti-Stigma Coalition, until next time, I'm Matt Smith. Stand up to stigma and good luck on your wellness journey.